Yeah. Just started the recording for anybody who is watching later or joining later. We're talking about circulation and respiration. So your heart and your blood vessels moving around oxygenated blood, and that oxygenated blood, of course, gets oxygenated in your lungs. So we're talking about breathing and blood flow today in class, and using comparative anatomy to understand some of the details of where our systems came from. Earlier in class, we talked about just a minute ago, like what Dr. Ray and the Evo Devo talked about last week. That was really fun. And right now we're working on phylogeny. So there's going to be quite a bit of phylogeny on the exam next week on Tuesday. And so everyone picked 3 of these organisms and drew a tree of those 3, and then picked a different 3 and drew a tree of those 3. Then combined their 6 now organisms into one tree, trying to get the correct relationships from the 6 that they chose. And now we're talking to our neighbors to see how they put their 6 together. And now you're cut up. Ooh, 6.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good. Sounds great about pick 3.
Yeah, like I said, very solid. And that looked like it was your first one too.
Yeah.
Well, I just started.
Yeah.
No,
So
there.
talk as a group about this. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So
Not terrible.
where they just.
Yeah, so clown is your. Yeah, that's your first one that I took.
Yeah.
For GI or whatever, the ray pen, and so they actually come with it or start. So it'd be like,
One pitch like the person.
your lab is actually first, because they're.
What's that?
It's like you look at it, way faster with the car. Well,
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas, and I need to, you just don't have to put it on it.
we do quarterly food explain.
I think it's starting.
Definitely.
Because I think that's way over.
Yeah.
Way over much.
And you.
It's all one thing.
Yeah. I agree.
It's kind of like. Maybe I just say, it's 3 words.
Are you guys doing? Over in the argument that they're waiting. Love that idea.
I just don't know.
Our code is.
I just can't.
We'll talk about that more. Talk about that more.
Frog, yep, so they are after. Yeah, we were. About the stage where they like, I'm really bad with. Yeah.
It's a real.
That's why we're talking about hearts and lungs today first, because it's so, it's not intuitive. You kind of have to do it a couple times, get used to it. Are you over here to get some ancestry?
I don't think.
You guys are having like.
Yeah. Well, so this is what like made me think about. Like I know you probably have.
When I was in my PhD, both of your charts, or same, like,
So
both same, like, make sure that.
Oh,
Like this, oh, like they all come from. I do understand. Yeah, exactly. And then.
So one of the reasons we do this is that like I kind of know that a lot of you have like an understanding of what's happening on one of these trees, but when you have to draw it, it's always so hard to like decide how to do it and illustrate. That's why we're doing this practice. All right, go ahead.
Obviously, there you go. Oh, yeah. So.
Why I draw it as simply as I've like.
Yeah, I know that. I'm confused about the concept of human because. I do that, but. Yeah. Which is why I was.
Yeah, really easy. Okay, I'm curious if any of the groups have any like outstanding issues with the relationships. Like, I think it's this way, they think it's this way. And it's about like, you can look at your notes if you want, but there's that kind of debate happening right now? In any of the groups? So everyone's talking about like, how do I draw these things, not what the relationships are? Okay. Okay. You know it's coming. As a group, not all by yourself.
Do all of it. Oh.
As a group, flip your sheet over. Flip your sheet over. You don't have to, but if you want to, flip your sheet over and do this together.
Can we use words?
Yeah, so please use words. Oh, gosh. And I'll just do something like this to get you guys started. You could just start somehow like that, and then you could just, when you add things, go crazy. Whatever you want.
I like to start from like the most ancestral. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you do it? Share how your process goes.
Yeah.
I write them.
I'm gonna draw it the same way. That seems to be great.
I know they
But we can draw it as long as good.
Maybe.
I'm gonna be your one.
I'm just kind of like writing your.
Your stingray.
Yeah, so like the stingrays and shark like
They're-
branch and the branch again.
Yeah.
Stingrays and sharks. Okay.
Because they're the same. Like the last one.
Right.
Should.
And then they're gonna go to your trout and clown. I can't remember which comes.
They are together.
No,
They're
but-
not at the same branch.
It'd be like your trout and clownfish, kind of like your.
You can't quite see it.
Could be on their own. Branch. I think you're right.
So.
And then
So basically,
you have your.
so, let's say this, yeah, right.
Perfect quality. Right.
So first we have one slant.
And then you would go, wait, you're telling me about your drawing.
Like, let me get myself, I like thought about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot the human on it.
Big, go fast.
Neo branch is gonna go a little further than all the rest, right?
Kangaroo.
It's okay. It would be sister to the, yeah.
There's 12. I don't have.
No, I'm
What, you hate kangaroos?
That's okay.
When you ran out of room, you realize like why I was.
Right, so it's split off, but then over here. we kind of got-
Let me face it.
This is why we use pencil.
I have
Is that?
up to this element.
You guys are-
If you can branch it off the bottom, so it wouldn't matter if you branch it off the bottom, you can just flip. Then you can squish it in there.
It's good earlier.
So I think Strauss, so it's kind of when their names are like Strauss. And then this is like.
I'm happy.
Like I said, but it's like kind of stuff.
Are you trying to do we're traveling October and I know both of you. Thank God.
Yeah, I did it.
And like.
I mean, they were, I was right there. It's like, next to it,
Weird way.
I don't know.
And then, oh, then you're human your hand would be the next branch up.
There we go.
I always do mine
And
back.
then would be splitting like.
I do
too.
Right. I do it both ways. It's just like we have. the other side. But like also the back, depending on the content. It's always.
Fine. Great. Mine's definitely.
I mean, you're gonna like.
Okay, you do one.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah, that's what I had. Okay, that makes.
Okay,
I'm catching up.
I was confused. I'm so confused, but I don't like how where.
Your process cleaner would be the same. Branching point.
Do sound.
Yes. Just trying to. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, so they had to come off the same branch.
I'm not sure. Same problem.
So after lunch.
And then you go with your next, I'm gonna have to put your crowd in your front. Okay.
That's the one we do want to get.
And then like from your main branch, you start the rest of the month. And then like your long fifth and abs.
Yeah.
And from your main branch, then you have your south.
Yeah, I'm just gonna need to review where those.
Exactly.
Like, what's the thing, Cobra, computer stuff.
Bird and the cobra.
Yeah, the bird and the.
I know that they have, I think they're more positions. I know.
The invert or.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Words. Just the invert.
So.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You're right.
This is your main branch that you're doing everything.
What even is that?
Then we're honest.
Starting from.
And then you have to keep building. And you.
Pretty sure these lines. That's the show.
Right. I didn't know how to.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wish we did. More often, or not. Whether comment or not.
I can make you read all the mess that comes from drawing it from stem to the crown to the crown.
Yeah, somewhere like that. I'm just not sure how.
This, I mean, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know, organize.
I get it. The peacock on the phone have.
Yeah.
They come off of.
Like one,
They
like,
branch together.
like the kangaroo and the humans. So
Yeah.
we were guessing.
We wrote them as separate.
And like.
Yeah.
When I start putting in the.
Then you're really done.
I think you might ask us anyway, so I don't get ahead of ourselves.
So we have our main.
I don't know if we want to do the first thing out, so. We know all the time have it. I think it's gonna be the end of the year.
I don't know if we have something to do. Oh,
Are we feeling close-ish to the 12?
Yeah, we did.
So can anybody share out like what you do? I sit here and I say draw 3. But when I said draw 3, what did you guys do first? You guys probably did different things. I kind of watched you. When it was like draw 3, how did you start?
I don't know if this is like right or wrong or what's best practice, but I always start at the top because that's kind of how we went through it in the lecture. And I
What does the
started,
top mean?
Like I started beginning of time. And then,
So start at the
yeah,
top.
and then I'm
Okay.
like, oh,
I would have thought the top was now, but all right, okay.
lampreys come off first, right? Because
Okay.
they're psychic demonic.
So when you had to draw 3 though, when it was just like pick 3, I mean, you could have picked lamprey, sure. But well, how did you start physically drawing?
So I did pick lampreys.
So you picked lamprey and you went done.
And
You
then
went to
I have
lamprey.
trout and I have human, so I knew that like lamprey was the one that was not.
Well, here, I mean, that's really interesting, I think. There's, if you have to draw phylogeny with 3 things, you can always just do this. Right? You can always do that. So you've got 3 different things here. And all you have to do is like, okay, of these 3, which 2 am I gonna put together? You could think about it like that. And then that one's gonna be the outgroup. Or you do what, just like, well, we can just like. Except I'll be like, I'll put lamprey and hagfish on there and you'll be like, then what are you gonna do? You also do this.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
No, it's not that hard, but if you're okay. So starting from the top, starting from the bottom, what are the things people do when there's only 3? Like, how'd your brain work? I don't think there's a right answer to this. Yeah,
I thought of which diverged first and then put the other 2 together.
okay, so that's kind of like that. So like the lamprey goes over here, and then whatever I have left, I can pick anything.
Yeah.
I'll pick the lungfish and the cobra. And I'm gonna go, yeah, that's right. Okay. So then when it came to like drawing 6 and 12 and all that, how do you guys do it?
I like to start with writing the names and just group the things I know go together and.
So, but do you writing the names like in a specific order or just writing them?
Sometimes I'll just write them and see how they go together and then move them as
Oh, I see. You make changes.
I'll make
You
changes.
get it rolling. But
Usually,
you're starting with things you know go together.
yeah, like usually I'll start with like the human and the kangaroo and the peacock.
Okay,
and
okay.
cobra.
All right, so I will tell you guys this, there's a lot of pairs up here. I did that so that you guys could find safe harbor in the chaos. So what'd you say? This one? And what are these? Okay, you've got your mammals off, so you can go like this. And then it's those 2, right? What other pairs are up here? Yeah, these 2, if you just take a second to look, right, you always want to make sure and look around and be like, yeah. Okay. So there's a pair, any other pairs? This is a terrible one, sorry. Those 2 go together, those 2 go together, those 2 go together.
Cobra and peacock.
This is a funny one, what is this one?
Reptiles.
I almost gave you guys another bird or like a lizard instead of the peacock, and I was like, nah, but you're nailing it. So you got some reptiles, some mammals, some chondrichthyan fishes, some amphibians, anything else? And what are those? They are both teleos. They are both actinopterygians. They are not just they are osteichthyans too, but so are these and these and these.
Yeah.
All the tetrapods are also osteichthyans. So then, if you do that, all of a sudden you have 5 of these and 2 loners to figure out. Loner. Does that make sense? That's an interesting way to do it, because once you guys have the pairs, that's a good way there. I'm not saying that's what you should do or you have to do, I'm just saying that makes sense to me. I kind of intuitively do that. I just start. My brain does a little Tetris, not Tetris, what am I thinking of? Plinko or something? I don't know, like where I'm like pushing things together, that I'm sitting there and then I'll just be holding a lungfish at the end and be like, right, lungfish. Oh, right. Okay. I think that's an interesting way to do it. Anybody do anything else? Did you start from the bottom with when you guys had 12?
Yeah.
So you went lamprey and then what did you do? Oh, you guys did
So
too?
lamprey and then like lungfish. I'm sorry, chondrichthyes.
Okay, so the shark and the ray. So there's a reason, right? I mean, I'm walking you guys up the tree in class, and there's certainly shared characters that unite, you know, the skull for everybody, the jaws for everybody with the lamprey. You know, there's features. That's why I gave it to you like that. It's okay. So you walked up the tree. Did anybody go down? Were they built down on purpose? Like I'm starting with, then I'm going. Some people do that. People can't help themselves from doing that. Okay. Any group feeling like they're 100 on the 12 altogether?
Now that we have the one correction. Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
I'm pretty sure now that we know that the peacock and the cobra go together.
That was your sticking point? You got
Yeah.
the cobra? All right, can you come draw it, Addison?
Sure.
I'll turn off the.
It's gonna be a little embarrassing if I'm wrong.
Whatever. Everybody knows this isn't embarrassing if it's wrong, right?
We're gonna laugh at you.
There's not embarrassing at all. Okay, I'm gonna turn the light off.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You're actually gonna fail the class if you get a single one wrong.
You could just put a little initial if you want, you don't have to write
Like
all.
L.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that's
Well-
what I'm gonna do then.
Yeah, we'll.
There's lamprey.
Well, they're gonna be kind of a part of it.
Shark.
We'll clarify when the time comes.
Well, first, I'm drawing straight.
Yeah. That's 400 people.
CF is for clownfish.
Oh, whoa.
Interesting way to draw it, I like it,
Try.
I'm into it. So it's going from.
This is
the top
lungfish.
Left down.
And
I like
then,
that. Yes, so what do you think?
I'm gonna add a little root on your tree.
do we have another S on here already? No, okay, sweet.
I don't know if there's another S.
Frog, yeah. Salamander frog, and I got down here, human, kangaroo. And then over here, we got the peacock and cobra. Is there another C in here?
No?
Please?
Well, there's another C, but it's okay. It stands for clownfish. Okay, so we've got interrelationships here. What do we, any comments or thoughts on this? I'll erase what I did. Yes.
Where is that? It's kind of like a weird, it almost looks like that was meant to be your root and it's just going off into nowhere.
So my mind was, all right, we're gonna make a line and then we're gonna make everything come off the line. That's just the end of the line.
Checks out.
Now, if you had done this, if you had, you said cobra and then you had gone like this.
That's what it looked like originally.
Oh, yeah. So that would have been a thing. I think it's very interesting. It's definitely floating in space. One thing that's missing that's really important is like a root. Because right now, this is, like there's no direction on this. Right? There's no like time component or like relationship component. You have to have like something that anchors it so that you know that there's like a split here. Because
Okay.
otherwise, how do I know you're not saying like shark ray, outgroup lamprey, right?
I need like this is the beginning split with the lamprey.
So if I could, I like your relationships. Let's see. Salamander. Funfish. After a fish, I almost wrote just clown, but that wouldn't be right.
This is trout.
Is that right?
Oh,
Right
No,
there.
he's got trout.
Line. Oh, your hand was covering it, my bad.
Okay, so that's, I would usually kind of figure it out and then do the names. That's me, but I like how you do the names and you kind of figure it out. Then we can always, you guys don't have to draw stupid, crazy squiggles like I do. You can make it look ordered. Look what you can do. And then it's about like, okay, so those all go together. So I'm gonna go. There's that pesky lungfish. And then,
I forgot.
that's an important part, but it's okay that you forgot it, right? That was like a learning thing. All right, so totally like the relationships. I'm erasing it so it's not difficult. everybody look. So Addison's group had, I would say they're like right tree. There's some interesting things happening on the board, but otherwise like the relationships are there. This is the same thing, but I drew it and it's a little, hopefully a little bit orderly. Talk to your neighbors about your 12 tree. Does it agree with this in all ways, especially down here? Especially down here. Okay, talk to each other, make sure. I'll finish their names. One.
Especially the that I would. Or at least something.
I think the peacock would be peafowl.
But I had a male on there.
That is true, but the male is not the only part of the species.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay, people have these? We agree with this? All right, now using the one you all have then. With your group, label for those nodes. For those nodes.
Well, I know it, it starts out with vertebrata.
Who needs notes? It's just.
I mean, I think we could do all of them. Your.
Yeah, that's full. You don't gotta do that. You don't have to do that.
Your salamander frog branch off, that's your tetraphoda.
Yeah, and you know, there's so. Well, so it's.
Tetraphoda.
Leave that.
Yeah.
That's like where your demons come off.
How's ambience going?
For the exam, does spelling matter? Like, if you,
Within reason.
okay,
Amniota with a K, I'm gonna be like.
yeah, okay. But it's not gonna be like,
If you write Amniota, I'm gonna be like, well, okay.
okay. Spelling.
When I taught in grad school, there was always it was 2 or 3 letter leniency for spelling and all anatomy exams. But then people realized there's so much anatomy that like you can write so that it means 2 things. Like, I don't know, maybe that's the fibia, which isn't real. You're gonna get points for tibia or fibula. So we had to always be like, what are the real rules? I will take it case by case, and I'm sure if I know what you're talking about, it's no big deal.
Spelling is my nemesis.
That's funny.
All
All right, so it's only with your group, right? With your group, you're labeling 4. Pick 4.
The cover on the peacock. I'm not sure what would be the next that we have out.
Like your kangaroo and humans would be,
Yeah.
which would be, would be like Theria. Right, I think that's what you call them.
Yeah.
And then right where it starts off. That's where.
But they're not,
So that's what I was. So see how like.
they're like geese, because kangaroos are.
Yeah, so
I can't remember the like scientific name for the beast.
So we get to this node, right?
Unless Theria is that one.
Theria.
And this now?
All right, do we all have at least 4 nodes labeled?
That's why.
I believe.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
There's so many of this like.
This 4, whichever 4 you did.
Right, they're both being okay, but they're also.
I think there's 5 of them, putting them in there.
It's the same thing that we're
Only do the ones that are circled, because those are the only actual nodes on this tree. You guys know more words than go on that tree, but
I'm still not about this.
I think I know.
H.
That's what I thought.
Good. I do it every time. Okay.
Yeah. That's the next one.
Yeah, you're already doing it. I think it's like that. There's definitely an eye in there.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, you spelled Ichthys right on the top one. Ichthys.
Is it spelled the same way?
Yeah,
Oh, I see, that's what I.
it's spelled the same way. Ichthys is fish and chondro is cartilage and ostia is bone. So cartilage fish, bone fish.
Something weird.
There you go. That, we'll take it. We'll take it. All right, what do we think? Haley Calvin labeled some stuff. What do we got?
I don't agree with that.
We have some pushback on cyclostomata. Anything else? What did you say, Jaden? Well, yeah. So this is our only cyclostome, right, on the tree, right? The lamprey is our only cyclostome. What would you guys label this note?
Vertebrata.
This is the everybody note. Now, if we had this happening,
Then we could.
and I wrote the word, I don't know, some other lamprey or hagfish, then we could definitely put. That's true. Cool. You guys want to put 4 up here? If you can, you don't have. Oh, well, you drew the tree. You guys,
Yeah.
let's get 4 nodes up here. This is why we're doing this though, because your brains put these words together. It's so weird. Like vertebrata means cobra just as much as it means lamprey, but you want to put vertebrata with cyclostomata because you came at the same time. That's hard. Always going for it. Beautiful. What do we think of these? We'll put up here. I'm gonna come in with my like English teacher moment. Yes, sir. Always capitalize. Do we like these? Not like these? All right, there's 3 left. Anybody? Oh, no. Only 2 left. What do I, what? Oh, yeah. Okay, okay. All right, what do we got? What's this one? The actinops. I would definitely encourage you guys to like practice with this, spend time with this. Well, I'll talk about it in a second. What's this one?
Trachea or something like that.
Oh, interesting.
Amphibia.
There's a few of these on here. There are a few like this on this tree. So Lis amphibia, I would absolutely accept because these 2 are the only Lis amphibians of the 12. But you guys also learned in class that there's Sicilians. And so frogs and salamanders do form a clade, and that clade is called the trachea. So that's also fine for me. This is the more broad one. Same is true right here. There's another Chondrichthyan lineage, the ratfishes, chimeras. So this could also be called what? Yeah. And if we had a ratfish on here, these are still the only 2 Chondrichthyans. So this is fine. But if we had a ratfish, this would be Lazarobranchs, and then the one with the ratfish would be Chondrichthyan. If we had a Sicilian, that would be Lis amphibia, and then this would be the trachea. What's this one? So mammalia or? Mammalia for sure, because these are the only 2 mammals on the tree. But you guys learned that if you kick out the platypus and the echidna, you only have the marsupial mammals and the placental mammals left. And that's a clade you guys learned about called Theria. Do we get that? Does that work? So if I didn't add the other cyclostome, this is what's funny. I could add the hagfish, and then the lamprey has a friend. There's nothing I can really add right here because there's only 3 like genera. Forever alone. in most of this class. Okay, so make sure your tree looks like this. Make sure your tree has these labels. This next part, we're not gonna do on the board. We'll take a small break after the next part, but do yourselves a favor, use your notes if you need to. Why don't you go ahead and throw any 8 characters you want onto this tree. You've learned so many more than that. And so to remind you, you're gonna have something that looks like this, right? It's gonna be features all over the tree that you could add. So. Oh, didn't I take a picture?
The bones are offered by skeleton. We have carbon.
Yeah, but also land tracker car lot.
So what's the?
No.
They have one of the triplets.
You might be right.
Like, it's more specific in the development of the land.
They have prismatic.
Yeah, so that would be the lab. I'm so.
The one that you.
Nice.
And then.
Two dogs.
That's for your.
No, that's just, yeah, that's just. Well, we could put that there.
If you label it, you know,
Or did.
and do it.
If it's not too, I don't know. I don't think we know it. I'm just gonna go on, but- What's- I thought they were doing, that's. No. Yeah.
Basil. Yes.
I took a picture of the tree and I'll put it on Moodle.
I mean, you could. If you want to put up there. Oh, yeah, no, it's for. Another one. I'm just gonna fill it out there.
Oh, yeah, that's the only.
Put in I'm going for the easy one. Oh, yeah. Love it, but I like this one. I'm just leave one for the. Oh, yeah.
Ooh, see you tomorrow in lecture. Yeah, I haven't done those yet.
So. Come on.
Yeah,
Diagonal.
Oh, they do that.
nice. I don't think I'm gonna give you that one, but yes.
You didn't give a synapse.
Yeah, that was that.
Oh, well, it is a true thing. You can know it in your heart.
I'm just gonna label on the exam, I'm gonna label the nodes, like extinct nodes that you didn't tell us, like mammals, Cyanodontia.
Dangerous game, because once you get a if you get something wrong, but ooh.
Yeah, take off points for something that you didn't points.
Like, what can I do? What can I do? It's the law. All right.
Legal law.
Maybe I won't. This is so weird that you guys don't have the handout. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Weren't we supposed to be talking about breathing and heartbeats and stuff?
Yeah.
It's not the whole point. No, not the whole point. Now we'll have a conversation about that is rich because we have a phylogeny. So we're going to start off talking about, oh, there we go. We're going to move now into like using our phylogeny to have cool things happen evolution wise and anatomy wise. Oh, terrible. Maybe I will lower it down. We are about to spend the next chunk of our time. Actually, wait a minute. Before we get up, does everyone want to stand up and stretch or anything? You've been here for like an hour now. Walk around the room, maybe. Whatever you want to do.
So it's not that. That is. But I couldn't.
I think it is too. I never get to study anything about anything smushy or wet. It's always bones for me. I chose it.
Yeah.
I chose my destiny. Certainly, you do not have to know all the characters. There'll always be a choice. There'll be some phylogeny. You guys will make a phylogeny or two, maybe. And then it'll be like put 5 characters on here. And you know, probably whatever. 15 or 20 that would go on that phrase. So I'm only asking for 5. Or whatever it is. It will be a subset.
Yeah, this is where the poor guy diaper goes on.
I have to get that one every time. I'm always like, I know where it
Oh,
goes,
buckle up,
but-
folks. It's forgot diverticulum time in this class. Don't worry.
But that is like the one that I'm like. I know
That's one of the ones where I just like didn't bother editing it down. You know, like so many of like skull mobility, like, you know, for you guys, gave you guys that for elasmobranchs. It's definitely like hyostotic jaw attachment.
I like it.
Skull mobility is fine
There's that.
for our purposes.
There's also,
Unless you guys become ichthyologists, it's fine.
there's also there's mobile premaxilla. And those two are gonna get mixed up in my head for sure.
The easy thing to remember is, of course, an elasmobranch doesn't have any bones. It can't have a premaxilla.
That's true.
Mm.
Yeah. That's actually probably gonna be how I remember it now.
I hope so. All right, so today we're gonna be talking about circulation. You guys, I'll just kind of get started on talking about stuff. So this is a very simplified diagram of the human circulatory system. A pump in the middle, dominated by a heart. Red blood is oxygenated, blue blood is not oxygenated. That oxygenation happens in a very specific part of your anatomy, your lungs. And there's arrows all over this diagram showing how it flows around. This represents all the rest of your body. This is very simple. This is a person. Here is the very same diagram in some kind of fish. This is an actinopterygian. You can imagine it's a clownfish. It could be any of them. That's how their circulation works to get oxygen around to their body. Before we jump into the evolution, we're going to talk about the human system, which is your system. So there is a very, very, very much more detailed version of the exact same diagram, but instead of just a web that goes nowhere, there's directionality to, I'll move this to your top of your body and the bottom of your body with a lot of the important places that use up the oxygenated blood labeled very clearly. So we'll start with just this one for now. I'm gonna do this. Just looking at this one for now, you guys were gonna have it on your handout, but you don't have a handout. So I'll write some questions because you don't have them in front of you. I want you to interpret this with your neighbors, talk about it, make some observations. Can everybody even see this? If I write stuff here? Not really. How will I do this? I know what I'm gonna do. A lot of words we hear. I'll fix that. You can start talking about the first bit here. And I want you to, like, on your line paper now, you're gonna, like, as a group, start answering these questions. These are all standalone questions. I want you to write out answers to these. Well, not this first one. This is a conversation. But then these next ones are all, please write out your answer to these questions. And you can work as a group. You're not by yourself.
Well, I think specifically it's because.
Is there anything specific?
Not really.
Like, in practice.
No, artery is the vein.
Yeah, the veins. No. Right.
But my function, do the arteries carry the related blood to the lungs? Is that considered an artery, or the artery then after that?
Okay, no, that
It's
is like.
just lungs.
The vein, so it doesn't have to do with oxygen, actually, the lung part. The unoxygenated stuff in the artery.
All right, so everything after that first question, you guys are writing on a sheet of paper. So you can write like vein. You don't have to write out the questions yourself unless you really want to. You can write the word vein and then answer it. Artery, answer it. So I want written answers for these, please.
So.
And use the diagram and talk to your neighbor.
Pretty sure that's it.
Although, yeah, maybe our. It's something.
These ones, right?
So arteries have oxygenated blood, veins have unoxygenated blood.
Veins carry blood.
Pulmonary artery is
Artery
oxygen,
takes
sorry, four,
Right.
so carries non-oxygenated blood. So I was. But they're both going, it doesn't matter to and from because they're arteries and.
Right, but it's long.
Remember.
And the lungs are the diagram like a capillary.
So, right, but I'm saying that the one that.
And then going back down to the body.
Away from.
So the way
heart,
that you
yeah,
could just
that's an
explain
artery,
it
I
is
think.
arteries carrying non-oxygenated blood.
Strike it house label.
And carry oxygen.
Because the arteries and veins are long.
No pulmonary veins. Pulmonary is. Like, or, yeah, I understand.
Terry, I would say to the part.
Yeah, I think, which side of the heart has arteries?
It's not supposed to be like accepted. Because if you get into it, you can write whole.
If this is not helpful, I'll go back. But in theory, this was going to be up here while you guys were looking at that diagram on the paper. But I'll go back to the simple one if you need me to.
I just need the questions.
Yeah.
There's the questions.
Yes.
We'll keep it on this one. We'll keep it on this one.
I don't think an artery just means it's not oxygen. It's not.
Then what do they do? Because they're out labeled.
Mhm.
The only ones we have labeled are the ones in the pulmonary surgery. So.
Oh, wait, no, yeah.
Are the ones you couldn't.
Right, and then arteries are.
Yeah,
going
no,
away
no,
when
no,
the vein
rivers.
That's, yeah, directional.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's directional to the heart,
Yeah.
is what it's called. That's what I'm gonna go. Think that we can agree on the direction and call it good. But it could also be size, because arteries
The
and
left side.
veins are.
Yeah, and it's more like the size is more and it's on the direction or the direction.
Everything that makes us look big, but.
I have a family, but we can go
Every other.
So I know
part.
that. I don't know.
And because there's more muscle cells there, that area would need more oxygen to fuel. Yeah, so.
I feel like there's three towards the wall.
And that makes sense for the same.
No.
Are the veins also the blue on the left bottom line?
See, I'm
Yeah.
thinking the blue on the bottom left. Is
If it goes, toward, pretty sure that's what I.
Twenty circuits.
What I remember, but it would be 100%.
You're on negative.
Yeah.
And here you look, you blame me for everything, Cassie.
Nice both circuits.
Everything.
Oh. My typo. It's right on the worksheet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure pulmonary.
These chambers are. Oh, I think this phase. What?
Or. Swear to God.
We're looking for 128.
God. A monster. I mean.
I like heart attacks, they're way more common.
Which direction you're facing.
Oh, God.
All right, it sounds like people are kind of getting close, at least on some of these questions. So this is just our very basic, we're starting here with the human. The human has a mammalian heart. This system is exactly like the other mammals. So we could have had this diagram and told you it was a tiger, but it's not, it's a human. So can someone walk us through like a blood path, like follow the arrows around and kind of say what's happening? You can start anywhere, right? The blood's getting pumped like this. It's coming in two ways, getting pumped like this. All these loop-de-loops are real and important. That is like what anatomy is. Okay, so do we have a group that feels like they can articulate in like just a couple of words what a vein is? I heard some good discussion about this. What's a vein? You all can go like this. But what is it?
You're saying we think the vein means that it moves blood away from the heart, where the artery it moves blood towards the heart? Other way?
Anybody have any other ideas for that? Vein and artery? We're talking about blood direction. Any other possible things here?
In humans, veins have like gates in them. So I don't know if that matters at all in this discussion.
They do. So your whole circulatory system has tons of valves, we would say, that like automatically close with pressure so they keep blood going in a same direction. Blood doesn't go back against the grain. Very rarely. Happens a little bit here in the entrances to your heart. So just to be clear, a vein is any blood vessel that's leading toward the heart. So this is a pulmonary vein. This is a systematic vein. It's, I mean, this is like, there's a bunch of them. So a vein goes toward the heart and an artery goes away from the heart. The heart is a pump. That's all it is. It's not doing anything fancy. It's just going squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. This artery contains oxygenated blood to go to the body. This artery does not have oxygenated blood. That is oxygen poor blood, but it's in the pulmonary artery. It's going to the lungs, away from the heart. So veins toward the heart, arteries away from the heart. Arteries, the heart goes bump and it goes, that is what's going on here. So that is the difference. I heard the conversation, which I loved. That's why I had you guys interpret this for a while yourselves, because everybody, you want it to have something to do with the oxygenated status of the blood, whether it's red or blue. It's not that. It's how the blood is flowing to or away from the heart. Any volunteers for this? Yeah.
It's, like connected to the lungs.
Yeah, pulmonary has to do with the lungs. You get all kinds of things happening. You guys probably heard like a pulmonary embolism, blood blockage in the lungs. So pulmonary is just a lung related word. I like when we see words like this that, you know, as a person, you have family, whatever, you've heard medical terms in your life, you've maybe dealt with medical things in your life. A lot of these words have these meanings. So pulmonary is a lung related thing. How many chambers are in the mammalian heart? 4. We have 2 atria, or atrium is single, and 2 ventrices, or ventricle is single. And so the one on the right receives all the unoxygenated blood and pumps it back out, receives it in the atrium, and then the ventricle pumps it back to the lungs. Then we have the left-hand side, it received in the ventricle again, pumped out by, or sorry, atrium again, pumped out in the ventricle on the right. But on the left-hand side, it's all oxygenated blood. And on the right-hand side, left-hand side, it's all oxygenated blood. Right-hand side, it's all oxygen poor blood. 4 chambers in that mammal heart. Which side of the heart has larger muscles? Which one? I heard both.
Left.
Left. So I wish when we do dissections, you guys are going to get to like see this, I'm sure. We will actually touch them. But why is the left like a stronger side than the left hand side, than the right hand side? Sorry. That one has to go pump and then it goes to your toes and your brain. The other one has to go pump and it goes to your lungs, which are right next door. Does that make sense? So you're right that your heart has that odd shape because the left-hand side is much bigger than the right-hand side, even though the anatomy is very similar, different sizes on the 2 sides. This is a really interesting question. This isn't a complete diagram by any means of the human circulatory system. There's a whole nother situation that's not really drawn on this. What did you guys talk about with that question about oxygen supply and the requirements for the different sides of the heart? If you imagine them as totally separate, which they're not quite totally separate. What differences in supply and requirements do you expect exist in the different parts of the heart?
I have an idea of what we didn't talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to it in our group.
Oh, okay.
So my idea is that the right side either requires less oxygen or no oxygen, or it has like capillaries coming from the left side, pumping oxygen to it externally, because it's not getting that from the blood that's coming back to it.
Anybody have thoughts or ideas about what Cass just said? How do we feel about the idea that like maybe the right-hand side doesn't need blood?
No, it definitely it does.
It's a muscle, it needs it. So absolutely. So there's 2 things happening that I just think biologically are really cool. This side can get blood pretty passively because it's pumping all the oxygenated blood, or get oxygen pretty passively because it's getting the oxygenated blood inside of it. That's true. It also has a whole system, and this side is completely dependent on another small circulation system that only encases the heart. Those are all your coronary arteries and veins. So you might hear somebody had a coronary, and that's like the circulation system that literally oxygenates the muscles of the heart. So like that is one of these other kind of loops of oxygenated to deoxygenated blood that works on the heart itself. I just think that's interesting. On this very simple diagram, how many circuits are there in mammals? 2. Go to the lungs to get the oxygen, go back to the body to go spend the oxygen. And that's the idea. Lungs, body, lungs, body. The heart is just a thing in the middle doing this. Okay. There's the human situation, a little fancier. If you guys, I encourage you to look at this on Moodle. I think it's really interesting to watch, like, especially with the color details on that far right one. And it's always nice to remember like the actual size and scale of a lot of these things instead of like that silly cartoon. There you go. Now let's talk about fishies. I gotta go get it from, I bet, somewhere else. Don't look. It's not there. We're back. Here we go. Oh, it's gonna work. Oh, it's not gonna work. I'm sorry. How will I get this back? This is the problem without having the handout. Well, you know what? We'll just use this. We're gonna use this instead of this silly small diagram because this will work just fine. So this is a fish system. It's not as, I was gonna show you that cartoon one you've already seen. So that'll be on there, but this is the same idea. So what I want you to do now, talk to your neighbors, take a minute here. On the right and here on the board are an actinopterygian, a teleost circulatory system. On your own, not with your group mates, on your own, note 3 differences with the mammalian circulatory system. 3 differences. On your own first, on your own. All right, talk to your neighbors about 3 differences between the mammal situation and the teleost situation when it comes to the circulatory system, please.
So, gills, you're right, yeah, they have gills. Keep it good.
I said that again.
Different number of chambers.
Yeah.
There's a different number of circuits, there's only one.
It's a pretty basic. I know.
Fish have gills.
Artery 2. Wow. But I'm.
According to this diagram.
This is the same version I had before, but it's terrible resolution. I'm sorry. This is what I wanted you to be looking at.
And then I.
So 3 differences between the mammal and the fish.
I said it's much more simple.
Oh, there's no. Right.
Blood inside of the
Yeah,
heart of
everything
the
goes
fish
into the heart.
is low enough.
But.
Mammal only half of it is.
Yeah, like I said, depends on this one. On each.
All right, could somebody share with us like the 3 things they observed? Or things they noted? Calvin?
2 chambers.
2 chamber where? In the heart? Okay, 2 chamber in the heart, no lungs, okay, and?
And also that there's no oxygen.
Oh, the blood, yeah, the heart itself doesn't have oxygenated blood passing through it. It gets oxygen, but passing through it. What other things people notice?
It's only a single loop.
Single circuit, you go up to the gills, down through the body, and that's the loop. What else?
From the diagram, looks like the arteries go to the gills and the veins go to the heart.
Is that different?
Maybe not.
So we still have veins carrying blood to the heart and arteries carrying blood away from the heart. There's not an oxygenated and a deoxygenated set because there's only one circuit, but the vein artery pattern is still the same. The directionality is the same.
Question.
Yeah.
since it's just like one circuit, is that oxygenated blood all gonna be an artery? Or a vein?
It kind of gets called like partway through. It's about like kind of the arc of the blood. So it's easier in some animals like us, but like artery, and you can see like as the actual diffusion of oxygen happens in these little like arterioles and the capillary beds and the venules, that's when like they kind of change it back.
I was gonna say, cause it's kind of like going away from and going towards.
And then once it starts to come back, right, it's very easy. It's you have to imagine it's like take out the lung circuit that the human has. It's just like if this was the only thing happening. Right?
Would another difference be like the number of beats at a time? 'Cause,
Oh, like heartbeat, like heart
yeah,
rate?
'cause our hearts are like thump, 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 but if it's just be thump. Thump.
I don't know. I think because our thump is the like pulse, which is both sides, and then the thump. I mean the
Is
second
it
one.
like
The
coming-
second thump
opening
is
up
the valves getting hit when the heart pushes blood out, so blood can't come in. So it's like that's the thump or
Okay.
different valve openings. I don't know if there would be. You gotta ask like a vet or
Yeah.
anybody have a fish they care about so much that they take it to the vet, and maybe they do. I don't know the answer to that with the thump because it's about valves closing. They still have the valves at the front. There's fewer valves for sure. So maybe it is just thump. Also, heart rate, I'm guessing, don't know. I'm guessing way slower because they have much slower metabolism usually than we do. So I bet it's not 60 beats per minute or 120 beats per minute or whatever, but it's like much less. But I don't know that. And I'm sure it's variable because there's 34,000 fish. Yeah.
Which it matters, but I noticed that the fish is like a dorsal to ventral orientation. where the
yeah.
Human is side to side, like.
There's definitely some of that. It's very weird. Like you go through the gills, the blood gets oxygenated in the gills, and then like some of it goes to the brain, and then it goes down the back and kind of goes down through all the organs. So you have relatively oxygen poor blood through the belly. And that is not how we work. We do not have that difference happening. Cool. Nope. Now you guys get to do something I hope is fun. So you can redraw your phylogeny if you want, or you can just use the one you've already drawn, the 12 taxon phylogeny that you've already drawn. Talk with your neighbors, choose 3 of the differences you noticed, because now you know what that human's heart looks like and the kangaroo, and what that trout and clownfish heart looks like. You've got them both. Somewhere on the tree there were changes. So where are you going to mark? Talk with your group about the 3 differences you noted between axonopterygian and mammalian circulatory and respiratory anatomy. Note a difference, redraw your phylogeny, and then pick a place on the tree, make a tick mark where you hypothesize evolutionary changes in these systems may have occurred. And then what I actually care about, and this is why you have the line paper, make a tick mark on your phylogeny and then write out why you chose all different 3. They might not be different, but why you made all 3 choices you're making.
So we got.
You can work as a group, you don't have to work by yourself.
So.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you guys made 3 observations of differences between the person and the fish. I'll say it again, just because why not? You made 3 observations of 3 differences. I can tell you that this is an inherited structure. So somewhere on your tree between the actinopterygians and the mammals, those changes happened or something was intermediate. Where, of any of the 3 observations you made, where would you make a mark and say this changed, and I care more than where you put it as to why you think it might go there. Okay, go ahead.
If we kind of like by amniota would be like the mammalian chamber or the difference in the chambers.
I was thinking green and amphibian.
Chamber.
Birds of.
Red house and bird's head. Because if they have 4, then it would be an end between the tetrapoda and amniota.
4 chamber heart, at least. Yeah. Say 4 chamber heart is a burger bone. It's evolved separately. Mammal incorporated heart is
Somewhere. I don't remember.
Maybe they want.
Pretty sure that was yes.
I think some of the. Probably put that, sorry, after review. Yeah, everything after that is.
Yeah. And we'll,
Well, all of them now forget that everything must be a human task.
well, probably doesn't, but. Cause that's why you're getting the majority is really.
I see gills.
Young fish.
Alexander frog. So between Antipoda and Yoda.
Yeah.
Right here, where you put the two circles.
All right, so just on your lined paper, what you're gonna turn into me at the end is I want you to like tell me why you chose the spot you chose. I want you to answer this question for each of the same ones, and then answer this question that'll help you with testing your hypothesis, your idea. Okay, there it is.
So 4 chamber heart is the master. See, but I don't know if the 2 circuit versus 1 circuit is such without a full chamber. So,
Or the 4 chamber hearts.
Whether or not there's 3 fingers. Is that, do they have 2 ventricles or do they have 2?
I didn't.
Atria. That's what
I think that's spelled.
Right, so if it's 2 ventricles, 1 atria, that means all the blood's entering from 1 atria and then is separate. What it's either. Or, and if it's 1 ventricle, then it's pumping 1 direction. So it's absorbing 2, which means something that's really. But I don't think that's right. So.
See where that maybe that would be. So which one would you? I feel like a 4 chamber heart. Yeah.
What only 3D?
I
One
have
circuit,
2 to 4
chamber.
And what was the third one? It is lost. Yes. That's good.
The single circuit. And 2 circuits.
It's like gills.
Yeah,
and-
no gill exchange.
Input, output, oxygen. Gills are the main. Or. They know gills. Not have one, maybe that's. Having gills and not having gills.
Do you think the evolutionary part of it?
Right, so you cut it off at the end of that trivia.
Or just the distance, but then like
That doesn't
whale.
Do you mean?
The distance of blood has. Then whale sharks kind of.
But they would have probably.
Correct, yeah, most sharks would have the fish one, like one circuit.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So I'm saying it wouldn't make any sense.
Like that's for.
Like if there's two circuits that are reduced,
Air, like with
So,
air,
maybe,
like, instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not getting any.
So lots of
like
So yeah, loss of gills.
directly through your skin.
Are we gonna say
possibly? I
total
don't know.
loss of gills?
Or like surface area to volume.
And are we putting that at control?
Like in our
Or, you know,
lungs.
we're putting it in
Then
the other?
like gills due to water that are like, you know what I mean?
Is that what you said?
yeah, but I
Yeah, I'm
don't,
putting it right
I
here.
don't see.
I agree with
that.
that. I think it's
This
particularly.
of how the blood flows.
I'm thinking of like the chambers. Like the no gills present, see. What I'm thinking like surface area to volume, but like you have way more surface area in your gills than you do your
And I'm
lungs.
always suggesting
Like
that
circular exchange,
gills,
like breathing air completely. But I'm not sure maybe if you look at the parts.
led to a
Like
good
this,
tuner circuit, but
It's
or
the,
it doesn't quite.
it would make
the
sense.
chambers of the heart are related to the number of circuits and
Maybe
It does come the other way though, like.
maybe.
this is gonna sound really stupid, but like. Animals all have blood, like blend, but they're like really pumped
You need to
to,
put a lot
like,
of blood in all fish.
Yeah.
do.
Like it's before listening to videos.
I'm gonna go with that.
Sounds good. Again, the whale sharks sort of pose a bit of a problem.
Do we wanna say instead of 4 chamber hearts, do we wanna say more than 3? Because that does include all that.
Well, yeah,
So
there
just
would
like 4 chamber heart.
Yeah. Then.
I did it between like mammals, like regular mammals.
Like if we have it group,
Yeah.
saying if we have both of them together, it explains how that's. That's easy. But.
But I mean,
But if they could like.
So why do we think gills were lost between fish and fish?
where are you guys putting? Tuner circuit?
No, amniotic with gills.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
I just think it's because of the lifestyle change.
We're going
Like
with it.
filling the niches on land rather than like being like half and half. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know how to say that, but like.
like there are plenty of marine amniotic stuff. There's a lot of water snakes, there's a lot of water mammals. Think about like whales and dolphins, that kind of stuff. Diving seabirds and whatnot.
But they don't, why do they don't? But like they don't breathe.
Well, what I'm saying,
Animals have 4 chamber.
you, the way I interpreted what you said is that they lost gills because they went on land. I'm saying, well, whales
From our knowledge.
fill the niche in the ocean, just like sharks do, but whales
Oh,
don't.
but they, yeah, they have, I get what you're saying.
I didn't say that that's true.
Like,
because that's-
The only reason I can say is that there's no amniotic with gills. I don't know why.
Miracles happen.
It's not too late yet. Wow.
That's,
You'll find where we are.
yeah, I think the ancestral condition is standard, and mammals and birds both have. Oh, hey.
Yeah, the printer worked. There's the real lab. We're on page 5, I think.
Okay.
So you guys, just to be clear, you do not have to transfer your notes or anything like that. I'll staple it all together, but I want you to have this when I hand it back, you have this. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
If one member goes the ancestral.
So now we're back to the same question.
Why would gills be lost?
Yeah. That's why
Oh, there's the other one of why is four chambered heart between amniotic and mammalian, or at least we think it is.
I just said that would be him. Yeah, like having longer limbs.
And that,
And like
that's
large
kind of
blood.
one loop. Yes, I don't. Reptiles are too.
And I said possibly because bird and reptiles might not have four chambers. And I'm not 100% sure, just because birds are very efficient.
Mhm.
There's only one century, so it's only out of the heart at one place. So that means that it's out of the heart towards one circle. Where's in the other atria, it's not that one hitting the blood. It comes into the heart. Amphibian.
My question is about as well. You know they came back on land. So they have. Yeah.
And they do.
They go back.
Or at least
Yes.
that-
Go on dry, like they fill the niche on land. And then like.
And sadly, they lost the kill, and then they went back
Yeah.
in the water. Pretty sure that's exactly what
Have a
happened.
difficulty explaining my words. Being made fun of, being about this. That's a fake credit.
You're being made fun of for being a physical person. It's not bullying, it's not a hate crime, if the other person also has autism. My brother.
I don't have a problem with those two circuits in that spot. Because being able to elaborate,
I thought you said that was because of the wind.
well, that was the four chambered heart.
The four chambered heart and the
Yeah.
The two circuits are the same thing. They connect. There's two circuits because the heart's four chambers. Or vice versa.
Well, they have, we're talking about like systematic and implemented circuit. Like those are two different things, where it's,
Mhm.
so like they don't have that in that.
Yeah.
You know, we did the four chambered heart.
Exactly.
Two chambered heart.
Well, what I'm saying is that the heart has four chambers because
That would create.
two of them are related to going to the lungs, and the other two are related to like the rest of the body. All the fish only have two chambers because they don't have the lung circuit. So they have
Yeah.
they have that out push like part, and they have to take in chamber. They have the outlet chamber. That's it. And that's directly because of the difference.
Yeah. I'm still gonna go with. Figure out where this person started. Started because they were in
No, we'll get.
Yeah. So they're these two of them go out. Which means they lose them.
I put any of that mobility.
Brave.
So don't understand how to do it.
That's what we're talking about. Oh, cool. Oh, what was respect to grow?
Did you already do that?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the next part, once we get the mallards. It would have been more contact with them, I would say. What throughout the body is regulated.
All right, I'm gonna keep giving you guys time to like think about this and work on this. You have the lab, you have both of these images now. And you have the questions on page 5. So I'm gonna turn this off for a second. You have it all on paper. I know it's not colorful, I'm sorry. Does anybody feel like they could tell us about one of the things they're thinking about, a difference they observed with the fish and the person? Where they suspect that could be a tick mark somewhere on the tree to say something happened, and then maybe an idea of why that might have happened, or why they put it there? A lot of concentrated work. That's fine. I'll pick one in a minute then.
Oh, not losing gills, but then.
Yeah.
Then what's gills for?
So number 2. What is this?
They use gills for their- that's super bad for- if you're on normal therapy.
Yeah.
Be comfortable with how many chambers of birds. Snakes.
Yeah, what are you gonna go for? Okay, so you say that the mammal has a 4-chambered heart, so all you guys really know is this and this. Well, really that, but I'll tell you what's this. All right, so you're saying there's a 4-chambered heart, this is only a 2-chambered heart, you're saying the evolution of that 4th chamber was putting it up here as a snake morphing for mammalia, so only the mammals have it. That's a hypothesis you could have. What might drive the evolution of a 4-chambered heart? By the way, this is my face if you ask me that question.
We said we think it might be because mammals are endothermic,
Okay,
so require more efficient circulation.
okay. More, so does 4 chambers mean more efficiency? Maybe. I don't know the answer to this, by the way. I do not know. Okay, so this is where you put it. What is some more information you could want to know to help you decide if this is a cool hypothesis that you want to keep having?
Well, we want to learn a little bit more about birds and reptiles.
You want to know what's happening here? Anywhere else? What comes between 2 and 3? Or sorry, 2 and 4? Right? Is there a 3-chamber heart out there? Somewhere? Who has a 3-chamber heart? Anybody? Is it 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and these are the only ones with 4? Because that would make me feel like 4 going there. Probably a pretty good idea. So maybe knowing other things, other animals' heart anatomy. Amphibians, that's a good one. What's another difference? So 2-chamber, 4-chamber, what's another difference between the fish and the person, fish and the mammal? Actinopterygian, I'll say. Actinopterygian and mammal. You guys already said a bunch. 2 circuits? What's that other circuit doing? There's another one. What if we just do that one? The fish is oxygenating its blood in its gills. The mammal is oxygenating its blood in its lungs. There's a whole lot going on between them that's very different. So we could pick a bunch. Evolution of lungs as a respiratory surface, you could pick. Loss of gills, maybe. If you don't know anything, maybe you think the fish evolved gills on their own. You guys probably know by now that the gills are very ancient, like chordate or even older thing that the fish has inherited. So the loss of gills, where would you guys put gill loss on this phylogeny? Loss of gills, tick mark, where are you gonna put it?
We had gill loss at amniota.
Yeah.
Because
Gill loss here? And what, so what do you mean by that?
we don't have gills,
As adults.
Yeah.
I would even go as far as to say like after birth, whether from an egg or from uterus.
After being born, these animals don't have gills. These ones do when they're babies.
Yeah.
And some of them retain them as adults.
Yeah.
And then these ones.
All gills.
So just using the phylogeny, you guys could make a hypothesis about something about respiratory and circulatory evolution happening where gill loss is finally happening here. What's more information you could get to make sure of that? You already just did it, by the way, by talking about what you know about these animals, and what you know about these animals. You guys know that. Maybe you don't know how many chambers are in a cobra's heart, but you know it doesn't have gills. So you're using that information. Would anybody put this anywhere else? Where do lungs go? Where did the evolution of lungs happen?
I don't see it, please.
And what did I tell you what to call it?
Organ divergent.
What?
Memorize it, 'cause I thought you were gonna-
Well, that's right. I also said foregut diverticulum, and then maybe something that you are. The problem is that with these two fishes, they definitely do not use this diverticulated structure that goes off their esophagus. They don't use it. These two don't use it to breathe. But if I put another fish here, like a sturgeon, they do use it to breathe, and so do all these things. So like kind of a lung, but also like definitely like a good lung. Could go right there maybe. But that would explain some of the observed things you guys can make between the two circulatory systems. What kind of like evolutionary changes are forcing things like this and things like this?
Trying to get on land.
Yeah.
Adapting to living on a land habitat, completely changing everything. Yeah, that's a huge deal.
You also said on like 4 chambers possibly having like longer limbs or like the circulatory system having to feed more of your body.
So think about this, body size is a factor, so your heart has to hit the true crazy examples are like giraffes and lots of extinct things, like their heart has to go pump in their chest and blood has to go all the way up their necks. It's very crazy to have a heart that pumps blood all around, but in the water, you can be humongous and your blood and the water itself are all the same density, so like moving the blood isn't that hard, but on land, it's very hard. So maybe a 4-chambered heart is more powerful under gravity. I don't actually know that that's a fact. I'm just telling you like, oh, okay, maybe there's something there. This is all I wanted you guys to do. And I appreciate you talking about more information you'd like to see. I have more information I'd like to give you.
Yeah. That's why.
Right.
Well,
Right.
All right, so this is like our own little like adventure time through some cool evolutionary stuff. So we were looking at a rayfin fish and a human only because these are like nice models and good endpoints to compare. But I'm going to go back a little farther. Not going to talk about cyclostomes. Sorry, cyclostomes. But I just want you guys to think about a couple different factors that go into the biology of vertebrates, for their breathing, for their circulation. So this is a simple statement. I'm only choosing this GIF because you can see the gills and I think that's good. But there's a cool shark moment in there anyway. So vertebrates in the water, as simple as this, use their gills to draw dissolved oxygen into their bloodstream. So they're pumping water through their mouths and across their gills all the time. You guys have probably heard factoids like sharks never stop swimming. That's true for a lot of sharks. They always have to be moving forward because their gills are passively having water flow over them, and that's how they're getting oxygenated. You can see the gills all opening up on the sides of the throat back there, and water's going out the side of the animal's head. So that tiger shark, while it's trying to get that fish from that diver, is like getting oxygenated blood. But a lot of chondrichthyes, a lot of elasmobranchs don't always have to swim, but they've evolved other ways to get oxygenated water. So I'll let you talk to each other about what you're seeing here.
Because it is.
Stingrays are always a little bit obscene.
Just using their mouth to.
All right, so that's a little white tip reef shark up at the top and then a stingray on the bottom. So what's going on? They're using their actual mouths just to create a little bit of some negative pressure to suck water in, and they close their mouth and the water comes out through the gills. So chondrichthyans, when they choose to not be moving, they have to do something like this, where they keep water pumping over their gills, but they're using their mouth, using the floor of their mouths to pump water across their gills. It's easy when you're swimming because it's just passively happening, but at rest, you have to do it. So anytime you guys see a video, or if you ever get in the water and you see an animal on the bottom like that, look at it, because you'll see it kind of going. That's how it's breathing, just pumping water. Here's a picture of the shark circulatory system. There's a reason I gave you the fish, like the actinopterygian, because sharks actually have a bunch of crazy stuff going on. And so I'm gonna let you take this in for a second. There's like a little diagram with a head up on the left. And so this is a lot of the blood vessels. And so you can see the heart is here. A vein, like a ventricle, so ventricle's here, sorry. Atrium and a ventricle, and then it pumps out. So this is the arteries, unoxygenated blood at first, and then they go up through the gills. So all these fine rods here are covered with those little filamentous gills where the blood goes out and can actually just get dissolved oxygen. These are homologous with the pharyngeal slits of all chordates. They go back here, some go up to the brain and the head, most go back to the body, end up looping back around in that one loop like all the other fishes, and come to the heart in the back. There's a picture of the shark circulatory system, just for you guys to think about. And a question I want you to talk to your neighbors about for about 2 minutes maybe, is this question. This is physically, this isn't a diagram, this is like a cartoon, this is like pretty accurate. So how would you describe the heart's spatial relationship to the gills?
Right there.
So maybe the gills need a high blood pressure.
Scared your heart.
All right, how would you guys describe that heart position? It's like up in there. I think it's like too close. I don't like it. Like, look at this drawing. I mean, this is like, this is where it gets a little cartoony, because this definitely, the ventral aorta, that's the aorta, same thing. You have an aorta that goes like this. They have an aorta that goes forward. But I mean, look at this. I mean, this isn't totally accurate, but it's like, there's the jaw. And so the mouth, the gut's right there. This is all like right here. Shark's heart isn't way back here in its chest. Shark's heart is like way up in there, in between the gills, right where all the blood oxygenation is happening. Yeah, and then it pumps throughout the rest of the body. Yeah, above the pectoral fins. It's like up here. I can't really show it to you because I don't have that anatomy on my body. Okay, keep that in mind, please. Same thing that's true for actinopterygians is also, for chondrichthyes is also generally going to be true for a lot of actinopterygians. So this is the same kind of thing as before. When you're swimming, you're getting active water flow over your gills. You can exchange oxygen, and then your heart pumps it around in a big circle. But when you're at rest, you have to pump it in certain ways. There's a little catfish and a seahorse. They're pumping in different ways. So talk to each other for a quick second. How are they pumping?
Seahorse is using the tissue back of its
So are they both doing it in different ways?
Yeah, they're doing it different ways.
Oh, it's.
So the catfish is definitely using its mouth to take water in, and then closing its mouth, and that water gets pushed out. The seahorse is also taking in water through its mouth, but it's actually using its opercular bones. So the gill covers are being moved like this, kind of like bellows style. So it's just another way to create negative pressure. And also its eyeballs are moving in crazy ways because seahorses are awesome. But you can see the little mouth at the very end and the seahorse operculum. So again, same idea. These fishes are in the water. The blood in the water is the same kind of density. They're just moving it around. Okay. What other respiratory adaptations might these two have that the sharks don't have? Say it.
They would have the foregut.
Yeah, so they're osteichthyans. So that foregut diverticulum, some sort of chamber off of their digestive tract where they can maybe exchange oxygen with the water. They have that. Sharks and things don't have that. So you've already seen this. Osteichthyes, it's a snake movie for osteichthyans. that foregut diverticulum that turns into the lungs in you, and why you can choke to death potentially, please don't. And the gas bladder in fishes, which is a homologous thing that most fishes today use for buoyancy. We're going to talk about it later in class, but they still have the structure. But there are plenty of actinopterygians that don't only use it as a gas bladder, that do use it to breathe. You guys have already seen this slide, just to remind you. I like to drive it home. Most vertebrates, because actinopterygians and all the tetrapods, most vertebrates have this kind of structure ancestrally, okay? Just because a lot of them turned into a weird swim bladder thing doesn't mean they didn't all have it. We've all inherited it. So there's a nice drawing. I'm going to skip it for now because it's kind of late. Part of the reason we're doing this lab is so you guys have a bunch of context for when we actually open up some fish after the first exam. And so here's like that swim bladder. You can see how big it is within like a trout or within a minnow. It can take up as much as 40% of their body cavities, this swim bladder. And so there's a salmon being cut open. So there's the nice meat you get to have in your sushi. But on the inside, this huge air bladder that they use, it's all just filled with air, not to breathe with, although their ancestors could have breathed with it, but to actually just regulate their buoyancy in the water. They can actively force chemically against an osmotic gradient that sac to fill with air, for the dissolved air and oxygen and other air in their blood to become air in that bladder. It's extremely crazy. Like I said, we're going to talk about it later. This is another actinopterygian that does not have a swim bladder. It's a gar, so one of the non-teleost actinopterygians. This is a GIF that'll loop. It's a bunch of photos. It's not like a video, but go ahead and like watch it a few times, talk to your neighbors, try to tell me what is happening here and in what order.
It's forcing the water out of its gills before it gets all the food out to take a breath. I should be emptying water out of its mouth cavity. That way it doesn't accidentally drown itself when it tries to breathe in the air. Because it looks like it's breathing air through its mouth. So it needs to empty water out.
Yeah, they don't want water getting in.
Which is why you see all the water come out of its gills.
All right, what's happening? What are we observing?
It's like removing the water from its mouth through its gills and then gulping air.
So you guys are seeing like the dual splash. I love that so much, right? And then you see the mouth open and close. It looks like maybe taking a gulp of air. So a lot of people study GAR because they're like very interesting. And there's this thing called buccal pumping. So throat pumping. It's really the bottom of the mouth that GARs do. So what they do is, here's a GAR underwater and its throat, it drops its little throat pouch down. And that sucks the air out of the lungs, which is the same as the swim bladder and other fishes, goes off the foregut diverticulum. So the lung air gets sucked into the mouth by dropping the throat down. Up at the surface, it pokes its nose out and then it blows that air out of its gills. That's what the little is. Then it opens its mouth to say suck in air, dropping its throat, and then as it goes back down, there's air in its mouth, and then it pushes up its little throat cavity, and that pushes the air back into its lungs, and that's the loop. So it's using the bottom of its throat to like take a breath and push the air in and out of its lungs. It's physically pushing the air in and out of its lungs with its throat. That's called buccal pumping. Very fun. I really like this. I've never seen GIFs of this before or pictures. This guy has a bunch of photos. I think that one's awesome. Of like right at the moment when the gar comes to the surface and is like expelling its lungs out its gills. That's crazy. This is an actinopterygian. This is a ray-finned bony fish. Okay. Here's a froggy frog. Lungs, heart, body. That's about as cartoony as you can get. What's happening in the GIF though? So the frog's a little tetrapod. He's up on land. And using that same buccal pumping we see in the gar to bring air in through its nostrils, you can see the little nostrils flare. Bring air in through the nostrils, and so not the mouth, into the mouth, and then it pumps the air from the mouth down into the lungs. And so again, the throat is doing the movement. The lungs are getting filled and emptied by this. But there's the circulation system for the frog. in cartoon mode. I'll let you count the chambers and pay attention to the colors of the blood, which is inherently interesting, I think. That's the frog circulatory system. I'll come back to it when you need me to. So same buccal pumping as we see in the GAR, which is an action apterygian when it comes up to breathe. Fun. All right, page 6 on your lab is this picture, and I will let you do that on the lab.
Wants to turn in the last week.
Yes.
Paper reviews.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know at what point diaphragm is developed?
we'll get there. Almost there. And if anybody wants to take off and stretch or something like that, please do.
There's like, still like remnants of
Yeah.
arches in there.
There's like blood vessels that share the same structure as the gay blood vessels. And both of them only have one ventricle.
Yes. So there's only one, they both have one ventricle with it. Different is up in long.
The color coding is pretty helpful on the drawing that's on the, that you guys don't have, so you can look up at the board for that.
I remembered it last. Does it separate?
Well, they both have lungs and
Birds, right?
Yeah.
Too big.
yeah. And I said the lungs are posterior to the heart. I don't know how many accessories you grab. I'm trying to remember the need the picture. Pretty sure posterior is.
Yeah.
Like in humans, that's not exactly correct, because the lungs are kind of like all of it.
Yeah, the fish doesn't have one. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, terrible. I just wrote it.
Yeah, and that's all that I know.
Yeah.
What's kind of interesting to me, that's unrelated to the question here, is that in the mammals, there's no longer that like gill arch blood vessel structure. I mean, like, maybe a little bit, but
Make an observation of this nerve circulatory nerve in the bottom.
Yeah, well, I think
I think they've both been moving like away from that.
but yeah.
It's like right up in there in the mouth cavity of the gills right next to it. But in the mouth, everything is much more away from it. I know you're doing it.
It's low. I guess so.
We can say it's like directly to the brain though from the heart.
Yeah.
Both of these skills are good enough.
All right, what are some things people notice about the salamander and the fish, salamander and I'm gonna say pig, but it's just a mammal, that are similar or different between the two?
With the fish and the salamander has like similar blood vessel structures around where the gills like would have been in the fish.
And it had when it was a baby little tadpole.
Yeah,
So there's like a, still like a, the way the vessels split after they leave the heart, so the artery of blood leaving the heart, it still has this splitting pattern. Even in an adult salamander down here, and it's like what we would call its chest, there's still that same structure of splits. That is homologous. It's very bizarre. There's a reason I didn't teach it to you guys in such a way where we like start with like the developmental origin, because your aorta and like parts of your heart are homologous with like single pieces of the gill structure of a fish. It's just very complicated to like do all the terminology for all the different parts. But you can see there's like definitely a couple serial repeats in an adult salamander's circulatory system that look kind of fishy, but it's like, I'm gonna answer my own question down there that like, where are these in the bodies of the animal? It's down kind of in the chest. As opposed to being at the gills. Gills are definitely like kind of part of the head in a fish, right? It's very weird. What other things between the three?
The mammal and the salamander have a two-circuit system, but the fish doesn't.
So the two-circuit system, they both have lungs, they both have a pulmonary circuit and a systematic circuit for the rest of their body. Absolutely. There's a left and right atrium in the salamander, but only one ventricle. So it's a three-chambered heart. So you guys can probably look at like, we'll put four-chambered heart at mammals only. Where would we then put three-chambered heart? At least tetrapoda, right? Amphibians, reptiles, and mammals at least have a three-chambered heart. So that I hope lets you guys make an idea. If I'm like, let's cut open a crocodile, what do you think we're going to see? You can say maybe three, maybe four, probably not two, right? You like lets you start to get an idea of how things might turn out. What other things?
They all have kind of similar return systems.
What do you mean?
Like the veins coming down there.
Yeah, it's not so different, right? It's interesting to me that the fishes have a single, this is something that was on the earlier slides, but I didn't point it out. The fishes have a single dorsal artery, and then the blood comes down through all the organ systems and muscles, but it's a two return, which is really interesting. And so we don't see that quite the same in these guys. They're a little more like complicated and split up. I don't understand that transition myself. Again, smushy stuff. All right, thank you guys for doing this. And so I think the whole idea of a three-chambered heart for tetrapods, a kind of a chest cavity where this is all happening for the pig and the amphibian, but of course not for the fish. That's weird and different. I want to talk about this first. Here's an animal that is on land. We haven't talked about them yet. If you don't know what that is, you'll find out tomorrow in lecture. Tell me about respiration here. Well, talk to your neighbors about respiration here.
ribs are really good work. It's either flexing its jaw muscles or there's one for like open flexible face and neck.
I haven't like
You have muscle.
Not sure if it's using jaw muscles or if it's just like has a bunch of space. Like passively.
All right, so this is an iguana, it's a lizard, it's a squamate. We're gonna talk about this tomorrow. How's the breathing mostly happening here? In the chest, right? So these ribs are moving, What about in this tetrapod, amniote? That's you. You can watch the pretty oxygen CO2 if you want, but what's happening in the bigger drawing, not the zoom in? Yeah, there's a diaphragm. You guys all have a diaphragm right here, a muscle that like drops and raises to suck air into your body. So both of these are variants on the same thing. First thing to say is that in a bigger sense, oxygen is way easier to get out of the air than it is to get out of the water. There's tons of ways amniotes, which is us, so us and birds and reptiles, can get that out. We have all these special structures in our lungs, very different across all of us. We're gonna talk about birds, especially later in class, but we all share this rib-focused breathing. So it's called costal ventilation. When you breathe with your ribs, these epaxial muscles, these intercostal spaces are flexing in an iguana. They are moving in you, but not quite as much. Mammals are kind of a special case, even among amniotes. So all the reptiles are breathing pretty heavily with their ribs ancestrally, and so were our ancestors, even on the mammal side of things. But mammals today do have, yes, a diaphragm, which is something that only mammals have. And so you guys learned 2 or 3 labs ago that you have your dorsal vertebrae broken into a thoracic region and a lumbar region. Your ribs usually stop between, they don't go into your lumbar, but they are on your thoracic. That's also like where your diaphragm is. So only mammals have that division, and only mammals have that diaphragm that functions like this to breathe. So either way, it's still like a pretty specialized way of using your rib cage, the rigid structure of your thorax, to breathe. It is derived from something that like what this iguana is doing. Birds do something that I think is all way cooler and way crazier, which we're going to talk about. But the amniote condition, you can see there's no mouth stuff, there's no throat. It's all like body cavity movement to breathe. Talk about that. This is old school, but it made me laugh when I saw it because I was like, that's great. It does the job. So these things we're talking about. Buccal pumping is dropping the throat. I like this kind of like stuff where they say like modified buccal pumping, specialization, because there's a lot happening. But it's amazing to me that we can kind of plot out the different ways we understand things like respiration work. Most fishes. And then the bird is just up there. But aspiration pumping means like using a pump in your body. So this is like that intercostal ventilation for reptiles and mammals. I just wanted to give you guys this bigger overview of the deal. Every one of these organisms requires oxygen, but that gill loss switched to lungs. Some of the fishes had lungs. Okay, it's very cool and very crazy. It's one of the great stories in evolution we can definitely talk a lot about. Now, the last thing I want you to do is to take my lungfish challenge, which is the last page of your notes. So you guys have now seen the diagrams and you have them in your notes now for a fish and an amphibian and a mammal. What in the world could it be in this fish, which you know absolutely has gills and absolutely has a lung that it uses? What is the lungfish circulatory diagram going to look like?
So there's one detail that I'm really stuck on. I'm pretty sure that they have paper cards. And the blood is going either gills, lung, body, or heart, or it's going lung, gills, heart. We don't know the system first, or lung.
Yeah, I thought it was a four lungfish and after that.
That's
But do they?
what I skills first. I think this picture
My
will.
thought is, the lung and gills are the same thing.
No,
I don't
no.
know. Well, like they, but they both. I think
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I want to hear your.
Because of the positioning, actually, remember there's the lungs like right up in there. So I think the lungs are.
You mean?
Let me get the gill, it might have been there with the heart, while the lung is, in a totally different spot in the body. Farther away from the heart, you just see the gills. First.
I really wanted to thank you for that.
I've decided I'll make a little thing you guys can base your stuff off of.
Yeah, it was like, I need all these.
I don't know, do we need to write anything in the notes section?
Yeah.
Partial divided. So it's almost divided.
At this point.
Like a 3-chamber part, it's a 2.5 chamber part.
I just need a fish. There we go. All right. There you go. There's your 3 models you can use. I'm only looking for something simple like this. You don't have to make it pretty.
I'm gonna go back. Oh, really? I'm gonna base it off of that amphibian drawing and sort of.
Yeah, I've been drawing the amphibian drawing basically.
Yeah, I'm doing something very similar.
I think some of the lines are tucked up with the gears.
Maybe, well, when we look at where the swim bladder is, in the salmon, it's like all the way down the spine.
I don't know why I didn't
So
really see.
that makes you think that the lung and lungfish would be like in a similar part of that location. Like could be.
No,
It says as a group though. We
You know,
don't
it's
have
not the
the
word
three.
yet.
I kind of like it.
It's okay.
But
I'm trying to.
very different. It's kind of. He's like, keep concentrating and stop laughing.
Okay.
Well,
What
basically,
do
that's
you
a salamander
think?
with extra gills.
Okay.
So it's.
Me?
I agree.
All right, so I've heard now 3 different groups say something really similar where they're like just saying like, we're gonna start with a frog or something. And then give it gills. To make a lungfish. So what does that mean for those of you that are talking about that? Like I said, I heard 3 groups say that, something like that. Like, what are you adding? Like, let's just say you drew this, and then what are you adding?
Love.
Well, I hope love, but what else physically on the drawing?
Like I don't want to say third loop, but I'm thinking a split between somewhere on the lung loop where it also
What's a
goes
better word for lung loop?
pulmonary circuit,
Okay, somewhere on the pulmonary circuit.
where it also goes to the gills and then reconnects to the pulmonary circuit.
So gills like here or here, you're saying? Is that right?
Kinda. I'm thinking like they branch off, go to the gills as well, and then attach back
To the lungs or to the heart?
after the heart, after the lungs, sorry.
So like a gill thing and then this?
Yeah.
Other ideas? Does anybody draw anything else? Right.
I do something completely different.
What did you draw?
So my thought is that I'm sticking more on the fish side. So we just have the 1 ventricle and the 1 atrium. And I think that the water probably comes out of the heart and goes into the gills
The blood?
first. The blood, yeah,
Yeah.
the water. The
Okay,
blood
too much
comes
water.
out of the heart and goes straight into the gills because of where the heart is in relation to the gills. And then from there goes into the lung. And then from there it goes like to the rest of the system.
It's like the lung is like just here.
Yeah, the lung would be right after the gills. And then the blood goes to the rest of the body.
And you're saying that because but the heart, the heart is kind of near the gills, like up here maybe.
Right.
And so, all right, well, it's much later than I expected. So I'll let you guys know the lungfish won't disappoint. I appreciate people who shared. Here's the lungfish system. That lower left is maybe the better one for you to look at.
They have like.
2 atria, two atria, one ventricle, so a three-chambered heart. The blood goes up here. Some of the blood, which is already oxygenated by the lungs, passes through the gills. Some of it isn't, passes through the gills. Some of it just goes past the gills. There's bypasses. There's no gill structure. It just passes the gills. Some of it goes to the lungs and gets oxygenated again. This should be a little bit red too. And then a lot of it goes to the body like normal, and that's all normal. There's this sort of pulmonary loop. I'll let you follow it. Here's the more detailed one, which is really funny, with like the face, the gills, the lung, and the rest of the body. Look at that for a second, compare it to your drawing. I told you it wouldn't disappoint. As being sort of. The blood passes through the gills first, regardless if it gets oxygenated. So absolutely.
Unless if I pass.
Well, right, but still it goes through like the gill zone. How about that? It goes through the gill zones.
There's barely any blood.
Where?
It's one, there's, yeah, the tiny little spot where
I mean, that's.
by the gill line.
Yeah. All right, good job. I think it's fun for you guys to like take the two extremes and then build something out. Thank you for doing this. If we can, if you'll indulge me, I have one last thing I'd like to share. It requires nothing of you. I just think it's spectacular. This is the only time in the course I think it makes sense to talk about it. So go ahead and organize your papers. I brought a stapler. We're just going to staple them all together. I know it's a mess. While you're organizing your papers, I wanted to talk about some stuff. Big distraction. You can see I wrote. It's a big diversion, but this is the lab to talk about it because I like it. So this is a human brain in ventral view. All vertebrate brains have the same kind of like stem structure. Here's these tripartite part of the brain, olfactory, optic, ocular. So kind of the same ancient vertebrate brain is deep within us, but then all this other fancy stuff that we used to write books and talk to each other and all that. Coming out of your brain, innervating your body, are your cranial nerves. These nerves are the nerves that leave your body and should leave your brain and do all of the really important stuff. These are hugely important. Today, I only want to talk to you about number 10, which is the vagus nerve. Number 10 is the vagus nerve. It innervates most of the parasympathetic parts of your body. It innervates your lungs and your heart. It's one of the reasons your lungs and your heart just do what they do and you don't have to think about your heart beating. It just happens. The vagus nerve. That's number 10 right there. Here's another picture of the human brain. I know it's a nightmare. Don't worry about it. Here's the vagus. So it leaves your brain stem back down here, goes down, does some stuff in your ears, does your heart and your lungs, does some stuff in your throat at the top of your lungs, does some stuff in your intestines. So that one nerve leaves right there, goes down your neck, does a bunch of different stuff, including stuff in your ear and in your throat. Okay, that's the vagus nerve. Here's a shark's brain. Again, in ventral view, anterior to the right-hand side of the screen. The shark has 10 cranial nerves, including the vagus nerve. You guys saw where the heart is relative to the gills in a shark. You know where the brain is in a shark. So there's a nerve that leaves the brain of the shark, goes right down there to where the heart is, right in the like gill structure of a shark. Okay, fine. Here's another drawing, the location of the heart in fishes. So you guys have already seen this, the heart between the gills in a shark. Here's an actinopterygian. The heart is here, right in the superstructure of the gills. These are like bony things. These are blood vessels. And then I picked this drawing because unlike that drawing, this drawing has the brain of the fish. Here's the notochord, spinal cord, you might call it now, the notochord. And here's those cranial nerves leaving the brain. The vagus nerve, which is the same one the shark has, goes down here between gill arches 3 and 4 to go down to the heart and go down the rest of the belly of the fish. But it leaves right here and in a very orderly, nice way, passes through the gills that are right next to it and goes down to the rest of the body. Okay? It doesn't look crazy in a shark or a fish. The brain's there, the gills are there, and the heart is there. That's the pattern. There's the vagus. But we are weird. Tetrapods evolved a neck. We broke the gill structure off of our heads. Part of your shoulder girdle is homologous with part of a fish's pectoral girdle and part of its gill structure. So your vagus nerve, here's Tiktaalik, one of the earliest tetrapod things that doesn't have fingers yet, but does have bones. I saw Dr. Ray talked about Tiktaalik last week. One of the first fishes that broke the pectoral girdle and the gill structure away from the back of the head, a neck. So you have a vagus nerve that leaves your brain, and most of it does what it usually does, and it's no big deal, but part of it is hooked in the gill structure. So your vagus nerve goes down, and one part of it, the left recurrent laryngeal nerve, which is one branch of your vagus nerve. There's a reason I don't have you guys memorize all this stuff, because I just don't think you would ever retain it anyway. But I'll tell you about a cool example. It goes down and it's looped, because this used to be part of a gill structure. It's looped around your aorta, and then it comes back up to your esophagus, and it comes back up to your larynx. It has to be looped around your heart because of the ancestry of the structure. In a fish, that was a straight line, and anything with a neck, it goes like this, back up. It's called recurrent because it's going against the grain of its original origin. Not a lot of nerves turn backwards. This one does. It's stuck around this old gill arch thing that you call your aorta on top of your heart. That's really fun and really crazy. And this was a thing that when evolution first came out back in like the 1800s, people were freaking out about like descent with modification. This is a really good example of something that wasn't created in a very smart way, but makes a lot of sense if you look at a fish and a person. Oh, the nerve goes around my heart before coming back to my throat instead of just going like this. It goes like this. And then of course, you guys can probably think there might be extremely exciting, extreme versions of this. Yes?
Yeah.
So a giraffe has a larynx just like you have. A giraffe doesn't make too much noise, but it can go like, it can make a noise. It has a vagus nerve that goes down its neck and does all the normal vagus nerve stuff, but the left recurrent nerve hooks down here and goes all the way back up. So it's a 12-foot long nerve to innervate the larynx in a giraffe. Part of it does what it usually does, no big deal, but one branch of it has to hook around the heart and come all the way back up to the throat in a giraffe. That's hilarious and insane. And you guys just saw how that fish heart, fish gill, fish brain are also close. It made sense in a fish. The descent with modification means it's a nightmare in us tetrapods in some cases. Of course, you can dissect this out and see it. And so there's plenty of shows. You guys can Google it if you want to. There's like YouTube things you can watch of like a giraffe who dies at a zoo. And you can dissect out. They often do this to like show people how cool it is. This nerve that travels like 10 feet down into the body and then back up in this giraffe. That is something that doesn't make any sense unless you're like, maybe this giraffe came from fishy ancestors like we all did. So there's some really cool pictures. And like I said, I encourage you to like Google it. It's a really famous example in comparative anatomy. And there's like the nerve itself hooked on the aorta in this dissection. So a part of it keeps going down the rest of the body and a part of it just goes right back to where it came from, up in the giraffe. And the thing that I love about this is that that little loop of recurrent laryngeal nerve is in all the amphibians, all the reptiles, all the birds, all the mammals. Anybody you want to check has that structure. So of course that means that even though they don't exist anymore, there are for sure laryngeal nerves in the biggest long neck dinosaurs that have 40-foot necks that the brain sends a signal to the throat that goes like this. And I just think that's really special. And so now you guys know a little bit about this. And this is one of those things where it's like, how do I teach a comparative anatomy class and not just like talk about this? I have no idea where else to put it except for on this lab. So now I've done it. I wanted you to see it. And I think it's great. Any questions, go ahead. But I know we've been here for a while. So that's all I'll say today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow to talk about reptiles and stuff. All right, yeah, please staple stuff together and just leave it. I'll sort it out. Don't worry.
I